Welcome back to Takeoff, a podcast where we dive into the trends and technologies shaping the future of aviation and automotive and the people that make it happen. The views and opinions shared here are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect Arrigo International PLC. The podcast is for informational purposes only. Some forward-looking statements might come up, which are just projections and are subject to change. Now that that's out of the way, I'm Tennille Houston, and today I'm joined by Miles Garner, who is the Director of Sales and Marketing at Arrigo. Welcome, Miles.
Good morning, Tennille. Hi.
So glad to have you on here. I know you've been with the company basically since the beginning for a long time.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, so 10 years is the second time round. So I was here about 20 odd years ago the first time, where we had a RDM as the business, and we had a telematics type of product called Autotex, which was a tracking type product we used to sell to the OEMs of cars, and we then ended up actually selling that to another company, and I then actually went across with that company, and I was there for a while, and then came back 10 years ago. So yeah,
Wow,
really good.
that's so interesting. You know, in the first episode, we touched on who is Arrigo, what were we doing in the automotive space, and how we came to aviation. So that's I'd never heard about the auto tech, so that's always great to kind of tie that in. And then today we're excited because again, we just talked about who Arrigo is as a company and why we're in the aviation space. So we figured on this episode, second one out the gate, we're going to talk about what's happening in the aviation space when it comes to automation, right? So what are we seeing out there? What are some of the advancements? And I figured there'd be nobody better to talk to it about than you, because you're out there, you're talking with customers every day, you're seeing what they're looking to do with their innovation timelines and what they're already doing right now, because there is automation, as we know, not just with our stuff, but other items in the airports today. So, I wanted to open up to see, what have you been seeing out there? What are some of the key things that people are trying? And have you seen any trends really with some of these airports and what they're starting with?
It's a really, really good question. So automation in the aviation industry is quite interesting because aviation has had autonomous aircraft now ever since the end of the 60s. So this isn't sort of really new to them as an aircraft in the air for landing. Automation on the ground, though, is really ever so new. And if you think that the way cargo plus also for baggage is collected off of aircraft, it hasn't really changed in sort of over 60 to 70 years.
Yeah.
It is a guy in a tug with a lot of dollars taking the baggage, collecting it, and it's really is a manual type of process. So the industry are now sort of actually looking at ways of how do we improve that? How do we make it ever so smart? And the type of conversations that I'm having are with airlines, with airports, also the ground handlers as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's so much out there now. I've been starting to see, when we've been having these conversations, some other pieces of equipment like autonomous mowers, for example, which I think that makes complete sense. It seems like that would almost, I don't know, that might almost even be one of the easiest use cases, right? You're mowing a very particular area on the airfield at a very set time every day or every however often is needed. So I've definitely been seeing, I feel like, autonomous mowers, autonomous snow plows. Here in Canada, we need that.
Yep, for sure.
Even Changi, I know that they were working on some of the jet bridges that were
They
automated.
were.
So,
Yeah.
seeing those pain points and seeing, how can automation start to close those gaps from A to B, and then moving into, of course, moving that baggage that we're, of course, seeing that big pain point. And that's obviously why we got into the industry. And I know that you were, of course, around when we decided, let's go ahead and test this out when IAG approached us for
Yeah.
our very first POC. Can you tell us all a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So we entered the aviation industry really on the back of a telephone call. And it was a call, came in to the office. Can't recall who took the call initially. And we then had a conversation with their innovation team. And they asked us, we've come across your company. We can see everything that you're doing on the passenger side of the business. So we see that you have an autonomous pod that can carry up to 4 people. Um, could you take that tech and could you then actually put it into a traditional type of dolly? And we said, as we always do here, of course we can. And we had a couple of their normal type of dollies, and we then took our technology out of the auto pod, and we then put it into these traditional type of dollies. So literally, it was all the sensors. We had to turn it into a vehicle as a first off, because like a dolly is just a really, really standard. It's a large
Yeah.
sort of crate on wheels, really.
It's
So that was a
interesting they
task on
brought
its
the
own.
dolly first, as opposed
Yeah,
to, obviously we know some of our competitors are putting sensors on baggage tractors. So very intriguing that they brought a
yeah.
dolly and said, what can you do here?
Absolutely. So that was their idea, to put it on to like a dolly initially. So that's what we done, and we took that to Terminal 5 at Heathrow, 2018, and we then actually ran that as a proof of concept. So it was all about, can we do it? So the target was, can we collect empty cans, ULDs on the body? Could we take that to the empty can area, collect one? And it was literally, can we do it? We done it. And that really was our sort of entry point into the aviation space. Up until that point, we really, honestly, we didn't know anything about aviation at all. As a business, we've kind of actually been around cars now for over 30 years. We understand how to make a vehicle. So aviation, yeah, it was really, really interesting for us. So that's how we started.
I always think,
2018.
when people mention the aviation and how we say, yeah, we got into it early, in 2018, 2019. But it translated so well because the fact that we started with our shuttles in these, intense operational domains in public traffic with other vehicles, with people, with everything you can think of as, the interjector point. Now that we can do that, we have this controlled chaos, is kind of again what I call it when it comes airside, right? There's so much happening,
Yeah,
but everybody knows kind of what everyone else is doing. There are rules of the road that are followed much much better than there are within the public domain. So
yeah,
it's this almost dance between catering trucks and fuel trucks and people and baggage tugs and tractors and pushbacks and people walking out onto the
yeah,
jetway. So it's
yeah,
interesting that we were able to take that knowledge and then push it into the space. And we're just finding obviously so many airports and airlines that believe that this is a problem that could be solved through automation. Hence the reason we decided to turn and focus the business, of course, in that space. Now, I will say, when we're talking to customers, what are some of the things that you're hearing as those key pain points? Why do they see automation as the answer for baggage and cargo?
yeah. I think there's a number of reasons. I mean, on your earlier um, outline, which is absolutely true, there has to be a commercial reason for anyone to can actually purchase an autonomous vehicle. And the problem is that you can test on roads, and there's companies around the world that have actually spent lots of money on testing, and they're carrying on to actually testing now. There isn't currently that sort of customers wanting an autonomous vehicle to take them from A to B. They're interested in the tech, and they absolutely so actually love it. There isn't that real commercial reason. Aviation, there is a commercial reason. And the commercial reasons are turnaround of aircraft. If you can cut down that turnaround,
Mm-hmm.
even by 10 minutes on a short haul, typically it's about half an hour. If you can actually cut that down to 20 minutes, well, then over the whole of a 24-hour period, you
Yeah.
can obviously then actually feed in like a lot more aircraft on a stand. So that is extra money to the airlines, to the airports, to the GSEs, and everyone else. So there has to be a commercial application. Also, on the back of COVID as well, I think
Yeah.
everyone's aware of those type of challenges where uh, the industry on aviation pretty much closed down over passenger. Cargo, of course, carried on. The whole of the world had to keep on ticking over, so cargo carried on going. Passenger, it just collapsed. So quite a lot of the infrastructure and all the people, all of them left. They went to work for like supermarkets where you could earn
Yeah.
sort of more than what you're earning, and you're not outside in the cold or in the heat and 24 hours a day. So they haven't returned. So the industry actually needs to look at tech, how you can then actually help with that lack of the baggage handlers and the will to want to do it as well. So those
Yeah.
were really the two sort of key type of leverages.
Yeah, before us getting into aviation and in my prior life, I love traveling. That's obviously my passion. You know me very well. But I've
Yeah.
never looked out a window and thought to myself the working conditions of a Bagley Chandler. You just don't,
Mm,
I guess it just doesn't click. But yeah, I mean, people,
yeah.
right, people are traveling in the winter during the holiday season and it's just brutal. Of
Yeah.
course, we are working, in Singapore where the rain is just coming down nonstop, and you start to think of these guys and the heat,
Yeah.
right? You're out there
It's
on the
intense.
tarmac again. It just all of these things. So I think it's such an important role that technology can help to supplement that. And we're also starting to hear from leaders in the industry. I've heard the team at Schiphol talk a lot about what does it look like for moving baggage and actual regulations, of course, that are coming out now that say you can only move so much weight because, again, it's just this intense. Not only do you have the weather, but it's so much on your body as well. So there's recommendations and regulations coming where people are only going to be able to move so much weight. So,
Yeah.
how do you then, what does that shift look like? But if you have automation that can help support those workers, right? I think that that's where, everybody wins. It becomes a better work environment. Hopefully that starts to pull a new generation of workers back in that can work with this technology.
Yeah.
It can keep things moving, of course, for airports and airlines, because now, as we're seeing, post-COVID travel is now like soaring. Everybody's back in. They missed it.
Mm,
So it's like the opposite, where everything is just coming down on these airports and airlines and ground handlers to get things moving along, right? So,
yeah.
so definitely automation could be the way forward. Have you ever thought, like, obviously in this space, what is something that you would love to see automated in life that would make your life easier that is not automated now?
Automated in life. Okay,
I
that's a
know.
good question. No, I should have actually thought about that one before we had our call.
Oh, it's fun to
Yeah,
put people on the spot though. Like I always
yeah.
say
I'm
that the
just,
cleaning of the house, but of course, like and people will be like, well, you have
yeah,
Roombas, you have those little
yeah.
vacuums, but it's not the full, it's not everything, right?
Actually,
I've got a kid. Wouldn't that be cool if something
that's
could
a,
just run after them and like clean up everything?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, iron M will be great
There you
because
go.
I often iron, and it's one of those chores, that you do, and all the time you're doing it, you're thinking,
I
total
hate
waste of
this.
time.
Yeah.
Why don't I just hang up, hang up a shirt? I'm actually hiding this one there because it doesn't
Right.
iron all that well. But honestly, it is a terrible, terrible job. That if that could have some type of automation, that
Automation.
would be very, very good. Like
That
robots,
makes sense.
you know, the
Yeah.
robots are coming, so hopefully that isn't all that far away.
Sometimes it's the little things that just would make everybody's life so much easier. Same thing, like my coffee is brewed, obviously there's a program, but I would love
Yeah,
it just like when I wake up, that fresh cup is just sitting there perfectly made for me and ready to go. It's the little
yeah,
things in life. Maybe
it
that'll be
is.
our subtext later as we attack the aviation industry. Then
Yeah,
we look for some kind of new thing. We'll start to do the little minute details that work out. But I mean, I appreciate you chatting with me about this. We're seeing a lot of airports and airlines interested in automation, a lot of calls going out. I'm obviously in our Ottawa office, a lot of bids and discussions surrounding automation within North America, within Europe. I mean, really, I don't know of anywhere that's not looking into this space right now, putting out bids or RFIs, requests for information to learn more about what could be done. And I think hosting people, showcasing this innovation, talking about it, is what's really going to help connect all the dots, and hopefully we
yeah,
can bring this into a new age.
yeah. No, absolutely. And the sort of conversations that we have are with airports, airlines, the ground handlers, companies that are looking at like a brand new airport. So how do we how do we actually make an airport off of day one that could accommodate all autonomous vehicles? Because it's a lot easier, if you
Mm-hmm.
actually plan that as a day one, as opposed to sort of integrating. So the type of conversations we have are really, really varied, and it's really, really exciting to talk to all those lots of different type of sectors as well. In the space, it's a really good sector.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be fun. So follow us for more, of course. We appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. We're going to learn more about various types of automation in the aviation industry, the automotive industry, and other tech that drives the world forward as we move through our awesome new podcast, Take Off. So thanks for being a part of it. Thank you, Miles, and we'll see you in
Pleasure.
the next one.